Guys, take a look at this graph showing the annual value of the broadcast rights for Premiership Rugby going back the last 5 deal cycles. The trend was great until it started to go backwards. How does a sport with such amazing fans, such deep history, and a recent past of global success see such a decline in popularity? And more importantly, how can the RFU turn it around? I'm Jordan, and along with research from Harry Bush, we are going to see if there are some business indicators that can show if rugby is indeed in a decline and why this is happening. We'll also provide some ways in which rugby can restore the feeling and get back to its British best. That graph I just showed you is quite revealing, but it's not the only one, so I'm going to show you some more graphs that are quite concerning. Strap in. This graphic shows the teams in the Premiership in the 2021-2022 season. This is a list of teams in the most recent Premiership season. Yes, there are 3 missing, as London Irish, Wasps and Worcester all folded last year due to gross financial mismanagement. Yeah, crazy. 3 teams in 1 year. Of the matches that do take place, a damning report from City AM in 2023 showed that there was a drastic decline in attendance as well. Their research suggested that 1,000 less people were watching Premiership games in person relative to the same games in the season prior. The study showed that more than 70% of Premiership rugby games had a lower attendance relative to the previous season. And in total, there were 47,000 less people watching the Premiership in the 2023 season than there were in the 2022 season. Damn. It gets worse though. A survey from The Telegraph suggested that amateur participation in rugby has drastically fallen too. In 2016, 259,000 people played rugby in an amateur capacity in England. That number fell to 95,000 at the end of 2021. Now, COVID did have a hand in that, and numbers did recover to 223,000 at the end of 2023. However, that is still a drastic drop of 36,000 people across the country not playing rugby. That's nearly 14%. It's quite a sizable dip. So to recap, we have declining broadcasting rights, declining number of teams in the league, declining match day attendances, and declining amateur participation. How the has this happened? I'm Jordan. I write a newsletter every week delivered to your inbox on Monday at 11 AM UK time. If you want more about the business of sport, click the link in the description and join the hundreds of people who have already subscribed. Now, how has this happened to rugby? Before we break down how this has happened, it's actually probably worth comparing this to other sports. Is this a declining overall British sporting thing, or is this isolated to rugby itself? I'll take you back to the broadcast rights graph for rugby and compare it to Premiership football. This is a graph showing the trend for the broadcast rights for the past 5 deal cycles in Premiership football. The Premier League has seen massive growth towards the beginning of the 2010s, and it started to taper off the growth. It's not declining, but it stayed pretty consistent. I don't think football is the best comparison though. I think when it comes to rugby, cricket is a better comparison. This is a graph showing the broadcasting values from Sky Sports for British cricket over the last 5 deal cycles. Now with cricket, it's difficult because there isn't a Premiership in cricket in isolation that people bid for, but the trend is what we're looking at here, and this trend is not in decline. On top of that, attendances are at all-time highs. Women's cricket is flourishing. New formats of the game are popping up and are very lucrative. And that is instilling participation at grassroots level in a way that's never seen before. You can't say the same for any of those things when it comes to rugby. It's a daunting prospect for rugby to overturn, and I think there's a few reasons for this. The 21st Group are a sports strategy company, and they say a sports product needs to have 3 things to be successful. Rugby's core audience, traditionally skewed to the upper middle class, is experiencing a decline. Attracting new and diverse audience is proving to be a little bit of a hurdle. The sport, until recently, enjoyed a pretty comfortable existence in its core fan base. Generally privately educated people, starting young, transitioned from players, school and university and locally to passionate armchair fans, fueling ticket sales, corporate sponsorships and a vibrant countrywide atmosphere. However, this comfortable bubble is no longer sustainable long term. Premiership rugby's use of social media is poor, and that's not just isolated to Premiership rugby too. World Rugby is the same. The 2023 Rugby World Cup in France was a great event, but World Rugby were prohibiting the use of social media clips on all social media platforms. They were taking down clips from broadcasters and even participating teams. Many broadcasters, many teams, many players and many content creators were seeing their clips taken down, prohibited, stunting conversation and engagement around the tournament, reducing discussion and casual interest from people like me. Match highlights were not that accessible on YouTube or other social media platforms. Instead, extended highlights were posted on Rugby Pass, their own newly created app. Although it is free to access Rugby Pass and the highlights, many people have to sign up and make an account to access them. Another hurdle for the casual fan to dive into. This tweet was quite pertinent to the topic. As you can see, this is not just the thing for the UK. This can be a pretty simple fix and will just increase connection with the fans, which is 21st Group's first point. Annoyingly for Premiership Rugby, this one is a little bit trickier. In 2020, COVID wrecked rugby. So much so that relegation was banned into the second tier of English rugby in an attempt to increase financial stability amongst the best teams in England. The following season, Saracens were promoted to the Premier League, but no one was relegated, despite Worcester finishing last. The goal being to stabilise everything and allow teams to recover from the COVID pandemic. So that meant if you were in the second division of English rugby, you could not get promoted unless you met significant stringent criteria. You had to have a big enough stadium. You had to demonstrate financial stability. You had to demonstrate player welfare and medical standards. Governance structures had to be in place for safeguarding issues. And there needed to be significant, provable community endeavours in your local area. Ealing Trailfinders soon fell foul of this. They won the league last season, but their stadium was deemed too small, so they couldn't get promoted. Simply put, jeopardy is key. I'm a Man United fan. Every time I see a clip of Sergio Aguero throwing his shirt around his head, it hurts my heart. It's been more than 10 years. Winning a league is really important. Champions League participation is very important. Relegation is heartbreaking. Every game needs to mean something, and if there's no jeopardy in the league, then you're missing a trick. And that leads to a lack of quality. Simply put, the Premiership struggles to attract the best players. With those broadcast revenues falling, the salary cap was lowered. It was previously £6.4 million per year, and it was lowered to £5 million. That is almost half of what the salary cap is in France. So as you can expect, players started to move. Owen Farrell, Manu Tuilagi, Kyle Sinclair, Billy Vunipola, England internationals decided to leave Premiership teams and go to France to make more money. Those players, however, are older in nature, maybe towards the latter end of their careers, going overseas to cash out after a very successful international career. The scary thing, though, is it's happening to younger players too. Zach Mercer being one, Lewis Ludlam another, Jack Willis, the flanker. When Wasps folded, he didn't stay in the UK, over to France. Sam Simmons, Joe Marchand. These guys are all under 30 and are deciding to play in France rather than play in the Premiership. It's a shame. On top of that, the Premiership season always coincides with the Six Nations. For 2 months, the best players leave to play for England and help improve the international standard. I understand that, but if you're a fan of the Premiership, it just feels like you're never watching the best players play all the time. And that lack of quality is leading to a decline in participation and in engagement. And there we have the three things that 21st Group label as the things that a sports product needs to be successful. And rugby is falling foul of all three. I'm no consultant from McKinsey or Bain, but here's what they can do to turn it around. They've already started with the historic agreement. The historic MPGP agreement took 2 years to finalize, but the commercial nature of it is aimed to boost rugby back to what it once was over the next 8 years. The team guarantees £33 million to Premiership teams for the first 4 years of the deal cycle in an attempt to stabilise the financial security of the playing teams in the Premiership. The final 4 years of the deal sees a shift in distribution. Instead of being £33 million guaranteed, the pie will be formed of 26% of the RFU's profits. Simply put, the more money the RFU makes, the more money teams get. Therefore, there needs to be a central, almost collusion of rugby teams to increase the profile of the sport so that everyone can prosper. Additionally, a new salary cap will be formed in the 2025-2026 season. They just need to compete with France. The key thing that's needed, though, is a much better digital footprint. Marcus Smith is a star. He follows me on Instagram too. Shout out Marcus. He needs to be more visible to the casual fan. Tries, big hits, player interviews, they need to be shown more on social platforms. My previous video on sports teams needing to act like tech companies is very pertinent to this. There are amazing startups that make this really easy. Teams just need to take advantage, and opportunities will cascade from there. Bigger profile of players, bigger profile of teams, more sponsorship opportunities for players and for teams, more fan engagement. That is the world we are in now, and rugby seems to have missed that trick. The final thing is a more of a wackier idea, but look at this map of the UK. Here are all the teams playing in Premiership Rugby right now. What do you notice? There are millions of rugby fans located in the UK, but none of them have a team local to them that they can buy into and support. An expansion of the Premier League, perhaps, allowing for some teams from the north of England to participate will definitely drive more engagement for those people in the north of the country, and also provide far less travel for the Newcastle players. Rugby is too dope and too historic to be in such a decline. If you want to see another British sport in a very tricky place, click right here. I'm Jordan. Thank you for watching.